Alright, so here's the steel frame that I built for the amp rack, and I've still got to sand that down and paint it. But I'm also working on a trim ring that will go over the amps, and that's what this piece is. And I'm going to take this bit and actually cut out a rabbet on this, and it will actually make this as a trim panel. So I'm going to lower this down to where it's about 1/4 of an inch high, and this is a 3/4 board. So what's going to happen is that's going to take a 1/4 inch away from that, which will leave a 1/2 inch trim ring. Alright, now here you can see the step that's created. So what I'll do next is I will take my 1/4 inch drill bit, and I'll put this up, and I'll drill on the flat edge a 1/4 inch hole. And it's good to use a spoil board here just so you don't tear out any of the back edges, and it'll just keep it smooth over the top. There won't be any frays on it. And then I'm going to take this bit out, and I'm going to change it out for a 1/4 inch spiral bit. And this particular bit that I'm going to use is a 2-flute quad bearing bit. So I'll take that and I'll put that in there, and I'll take the piece of wood and I'll just make sure that my bearing is just above what I rabbeted out, and it'll ride along that edge there. You want to make sure you keep it tight against there, because if you don't, when that spins, it can grab a hold of the piece and leave a jagged edge that you may have to go back in and fill in later, or possibly even have to cut a new piece. So you've always got to keep that bearing tight against that straight edge there. And here you can see that ring that's been cut out. And I'll have to sand that little nub off of there with a piece of sandpaper. And this is what it's going to look like in the car. It's just going to be a cover to go over the top, and it will float above that, and there will be a piece of pressed metal that goes in here, which is what I'm working on down here, this little box. So that was part of it, and then here's the other part. This would be the positive piece that goes in, and I'm actually going to take and put a chamfer on that, just to give it a little bit of a profile for the pressed metal. Alright, now you can see the profile that's on this. And I've taken this over here and I've put a little piece of tape down there and one down there and a long strip across the top, and then this top piece will go on the top here, and once that's pushed down and then pulled apart, you can see that that transferred over to this piece. And now I've got my piece of metal that I've cut down to size. It's got a smooth edge and a rough edge. So you want to make sure that you put the smooth edge on the outside, which on mine is going to be facing down. I've got my positive piece that's going on the top that pushes down. And you want to make sure that you keep this straight across. So you can see it's got straight lines there. You really don't want it to be turned like this, you know, because it would just kind of look weird unless you just did a complete angle on it. But mine's going to be straight across here, so I put down a couple pieces of tape just to hold that down and in place. And then here's my top piece that I'm going to put on top and take it over to the press to be pressed. Alright, now we got it back from the press, and we'll pull it apart. And as you can see, now we've got a pressed grill, which looks pretty good with that profile on it. And then all I'm going to do is just take and I'll trim that out with some cutters. And this is what it'll actually look like in the other trim piece. And I think what I'm going to do is put a chamfer here and they'll do a round over on the outside. So here we are doing the chamfer. That's what the chamfer looks like once it's complete. And now I'm just going to do a 1/4 inch round over on the outside edge. And there's the round over. And I've actually shaved the edges off of this too. And I'm actually going to put a rabbet in this because this material has a thickness and I want that to fit in there flush. So I'm just going to rabbet that down for the thickness of the metal and the vinyl. And there that one is. And then I'm going to take on the outside and just do one just for the vinyl itself. So now I've got one in here for the metal and vinyl and one on the outside just for the vinyl. And this is what the finished piece will look like before wrapping. And here it is being wrapped and inside the vehicle.